Good morning. Welcome to day 35 of Bible in a Year as we cover from Genesis to Revelation in 365 days. We are reading the Holy Bible, the love story, greatest love story between God and his people. And we are following the Adventures timeline, and we're doing this with the New International Version. Our reading for today is going to be Exodus 13 to 14, Leviticus 10, Psalm 53. My name is Pastor Jay Lutz, and we're going through the period of Egypt and Exodus. Now, Exodus 13 to 14 is about the consecration of the firstborn, done to commemorate the day God saved Israel and led them out of Egypt. And then it goes on to tell the famous story of the parting of the Red Sea by Moses. Next reading we have is Leviticus 10, is the death of Nadab and Abihu, who used unauthorized fire before the Lord at the tent of meeting, and this was contrary to the command of God, and they were consumed by fire. So watch out when you don't follow the rules. And Psalm 53, which is a psalm of King David. It's a psalm of petition. These type of psalms are psalms where you're petitioning to help for the help of God. So let's begin. Exodus chapter 13. The Lord said to Moses, "Consecrate to me every firstborn male. The first offspring of every womb among the Israelites belongs to me, whether man or animal." And Moses said to the people, "Commemorate this day the day you came out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery, because the Lord brought you out of it with a mighty hand. Eat nothing containing yeast. Today, in the month of Abib, you are leaving. When the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, the land he swore to you, your forefathers, to give you a land flowing with milk and honey. You are to observe this ceremony in this month. For 7 days eat bread made without yeast, and on the seventh day hold a festival to the Lord. Eat unleavened bread during those 7 days. Nothing with yeast in it is to be seen among you, nor shall any yeast be seen anywhere within your borders. On that day tell your son, I do this because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt. This observance will be for you like a sign on your hand and a reminder on your forehead that the law of the Lord is to be on your lips. For the Lord brought you out of Egypt with his mighty hand. You must keep the ordinance at the appointed time, year after year. After the Lord brings you into the land of Canaan and gives it to you, as he promised on oath to you and your forefathers, you are to give over to the Lord the first offspring of every womb. All the firstborn males of your livestock belong to the Lord. Redeem with a lamb every firstborn donkey, but if you do not redeem it, break its neck. Redeem every firstborn amongst your sons. In days to come, when your son asks you, what does this mean? Say to him, with a mighty hand the Lord brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. When Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, the Lord killed every firstborn in Egypt, both men and animal. This is why I sacrificed to the Lord the first male offspring of every womb and redeemed each of my firstborn sons. And it will be like a sign on your hand and a symbol on your forehead that the Lord has brought you out of Egypt with his mighty hand." When the Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them on the road through the Philistine country, though that was shorter. For God said, if they face war, they might change their mind and return to Egypt. So God led the people around by the desert road towards the Red Sea. The Israelites went up out of Egypt, armed for battle. Moses took the bones of Joseph from him because Joseph had made the sons of Israel swear an oath. He had said, God will surely come to your aid, and then you must carry my bones up with you from this place. After leaving Succoth, they camped at Etham on the edge of the desert. By day the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light so that they could travel by day and night. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people. Then the Lord said to Moses, chapter 14. Then the Lord said to Moses, tell the Israelites to turn back and encamp near Pi Hahiroth. between Migdol and the sea. They are to encamp by the sea directly opposite Baal-zephon. Pharaoh will think the Israelites are wandering around the land in confusion, hemmed in by the desert. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them. But I will gain glory for myself through Pharaoh and all his army, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. So the Israelites did this. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his officials changed their mind about them and said, "What have we done? We have left the Israelites go, and we have let the Israelites go and have lost their services." So he had his chariots made ready and took his army with him. He took 600 of the best chariots, along with all the other chariots of Egypt, with officers over all of them. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, so that he pursued the Israelites, who were marching out boldly. The Egyptians, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, horsemen and troops, pursued the Israelites and overtook them as they camped by the sea near Pi-hahiroth, opposite Baal-zephon. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them. They were terrified and cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Was it because there was no graves in Egypt that they brought us out to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, 'Leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians'? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert." Moses answered the people, "Don't be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only be still." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water so the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will go in after them, and I will gain glory through Pharaoh and all his army, through his chariots and his horsemen. The Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I gain glory through Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen." Then the angel of the Lord, who had been traveling in front of Israel's army, withdrew and went behind them. The pillar of cloud also moved from in front and stood behind them, coming between the armies of Egypt and Israel. Throughout the night the cloud brought darkness to the one side and light to the other side, so neither went near the other all night long. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and all that night the Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind and turned it into dry land. The waters were divided, and the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground, with a wall of water on the right and on the left. The Egyptians pursued them, and all Pharaoh's horses and chariots and horsemen followed them into the sea. During the last watch of the night, the Lord looked down from the pillar of fire and cloud at the Egyptian army and threw it into confusion. He made the wheels of their chariots come off, so that they had difficulty driving. The Egyptians said, "Let's go away from the Israelites. The Lord is fighting for them against Egypt." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, so that the waters may flow back over the Egyptians and their chariots and the horsemen." Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and at daybreak the sea went back to its place. The Egyptians were fleeing toward it, and the Lord swept them into the sea. The water covered back and covered the chariots and horsemen, the entire army of Pharaoh that had followed the Israelites into the sea. Not one of them survived. But the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground, with a wall of water on their right and on their left. That day the Lord saved Israel from the hands of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians lying dead on the shore. And when the Israelites saw the great power the Lord displayed against the Egyptians, the people feared the Lord and put their trust in him and in Moses his servant. That's our second reading. Our second reading is Leviticus 10. Now Aaron's son Nadab and Abihu took their censers, put fire in them, and added incense. And they offered unauthorized fire before the Lord, contrary to his command. So fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord. Moses then said, "Aaron, this is what the Lord spoke of when he said, 'Among those who approach me, I will show myself holy. In the sight of all the people, I will be honored.'" Aaron remained silent. Moses summoned Mishael and Elzaphan, the sons of Aaron's uncle Uzziel, and said to them, "Come here, carry your cousins outside the camp, away from the front of the sanctuary." So they came and carried them, still in their tunics, outside the camp, as Moses ordered. Then Moses said to Aaron and his son Eleazar and Ithamar, "Do not let your hair become unkempt. And do not tear your clothes, or you will die, and the Lord will be angry with the whole community. But your relatives, all the house of Israel, may mourn for those the Lord has destroyed by fire. Do not leave the entrance to the tent of meeting, or you will die, because the Lord's anointing oil is on you. So they did as Moses said. Then the Lord said to Aaron, You and your sons are not to drink wine or other fermented drinks whenever you go into the tent of meeting, or you will die. This is a lasting ordinance for the generations to come. You must distinguish between the holy and the common, between the unclean and the clean. You must teach the Israelites all the decrees that the Lord has given them through Moses. Moses said to Aaron and his remaining sons, Eleazar and Ithamar, Take the grain offering left over from the offerings made to the Lord by fire and eat it prepared without yeast beside the altar, for it is most holy. Eat it in a holy place, because it is your share and your son's share of the offering made to the Lord by fire. For so I have been commanded. But you and your sons and your daughters may eat the breast that was waved and the thigh that was presented. Eat them in a ceremonially clean place, and they have been given to you and your children as your share of the Israelites' fellowship offerings. The thigh that was presented and the breast that was waved must be brought with the fat portions of the offering made by fire, to be waved before the Lord as a wave offering. This will be the regular share for you and your children, as the Lord has commanded. When Moses inquired about the goat of the sin offering and found that it had been burned up, he was angry with Eleazar and Ithamar, Aaron's remaining sons, and asked, Why didn't you eat the sin offering in the sanctuary? It is most holy. It is given to you to take away the guilt of the community by making atonement for them before the Lord. Since its blood was not taken into the holy place, you should have eaten the goat in the sanctuary area as I commanded. Aaron replied to Moses, Today they sacrifice their sin offering and their burnt offering before the Lord. But such things as this have happened to me. Would the Lord have been pleased if I had eaten the sin offering today? When Moses heard this, he was satisfied. Our last reading comes from Psalm 53. The fool says in his heart, There is no God. They are corrupt and their ways are vile. There is no one who does good. God looks down from heaven on the sons of men to see if there are any who understand, any who seek God. Everyone has turned away. They have together become corrupt. There is no one who does good, not even one. Will the evildoers never learn? Those who devour my people as men eat bread and who do not call on God? There they were, overwhelmed with dread. Where was nothing to dread, God scattered the bones of those who attacked you. You put them to shame, for God despises them. Oh, that salvation for Israel would come out of Zion. When God restores the fortunes of his people, let Jacob rejoice and Israel be glad. Here ends the psalm. This is a stark warning against atheism, that God calls them fools for not acknowledging him as God. And he looks down on heaven, and he knows that they don't seek understanding, and therefore don't seek him. It's harsh, but I mean, if you bury your head in the sand and you don't want to acknowledge what is real, what is the truth, then there's consequences worse than just being ignorant. So I hope anyone who has family members that don't believe in anything might learn from that. Also, we hear about the death of Nadab and Abihu. This is also we got lots of stark warnings, not just against atheism, but against those people who do not follow God's orders. And by the sounds of it, they were most likely drunk too, because he says, where does it say here? Oh yes, you and your sons are not to drink wine or other fermented drink whenever you go into the tent of meeting, or you will die. I presume this was also probably part of it, is they got drunk and then they started doing silly things, and God says you have to be you have to be pure before God when you're doing these things, in order to not spite his good works. And then lastly, talking about good works, we see in the Exodus, the people of God are complaining to God that God has brought them out in the desert to kill them. And then God does something incredible, miraculous. He pulls back the sea waters and holds them at bay in order that the people can walk through. And the Egyptians try walking through, and not only does he confuse them, literally the wheels fall off the wagon and they're drowned. And so, and the people, it says at the end, it says they're in awe of God. And no kidding. I mean, would you not be if God came and saved you in such a regard? It says when they saw that the bodies were covered the sea, that none of them had survived, covered the shore. Yeah, you know that God is powerful and mighty. You don't want to mess with God. So, these are all three of these readings are very stark warnings against doubting the works of God and taking God's ordinances lightly and not following in the way of God. May we ever think heavily about the things of God and the things God has done for each and every one of us. May we be a testament to him and his goodness by following in his ways. I pray that as we go through this Bible in a year, you might pray for me as I pray for you, that you might, like Proverbs says, the beginning of wisdom is fear of the Lord, and that you might fear the Lord, that you might have reverence for God, that you might pray for me as we go through this, that we all might be well. Thank you. Have a great day.